A frozen wind cuts across the mountains and harbors of North Korea, carrying whispers of a secret economy the world rarely sees. Behind the rigid parades and iron gates, a shadow network of money moves through labor, cyber theft, weapons, and smuggling, funding a regime that thrives while its people struggle. This is not a story of poverty alone, but of ingenuity, audacity, and survival on a scale both terrifying and invisible. How does one of the most isolated nations on Earth actually make money? The answer is as dark as it is fascinating. Snowdrifts over the jagged mountains of North Hanjong, where the chill air carries more than frost, it carries the weight of a secretive economy. North Korea is often imagined as a completely closed fortress, but the reality is more complex. Beneath the regime's isolationist image, legal exports flow limited, tightly controlled, yet far from non-existent. Coal, iron ore, and seafood slip across borders, often via shadowy channels that blur the line between legality and clandestine trade. China remains the lifeline, receiving the majority of these state-sanctioned goods. Official figures are scarce, but UN trade reports estimate that North Korea exported over $1 billion worth of minerals and seafood annually before stricter sanctions tightened their grip. These revenues do not trickle down to ordinary citizens. Instead, they feed directly into state coffers, funding the military, infrastructure projects, and the elite's privileges. Yet, amidst this economic choreography, there is a human story often overlooked. Fishermen laboring in freezing seas, miners digging into the earth, all aware that their toil supports a regime they may not believe in. The system extracts value from people who see little of it themselves, a quiet tragedy behind every shipment that leaves the port. Legal exports may be modest, but they reveal a critical truth. North Korea's economy is not entirely sealed. The shadows of trade hint at deeper, riskier channels that fuel the state's survival and lead directly to the world of smuggling and sanctions evasion. The dust of foreign construction sites clings to tired boots, the sun beating down on faces far from home. Thousands of North Koreans labor overseas, from the frozen forests of Russia to the bustling factories of China, and the deserts of the Middle East to remote corners of Africa. They are building, cutting, and producing not for themselves, but for a state that claims nearly everything they earn. Reports from the United Nations estimate that up to 80 to 90% of these workers' wages are siphoned directly to the regime, generating hundreds of millions of dollars each year. In some cases, entire teams are housed under strict surveillance, passports confiscated, their freedom a currency in service of the state. It is a modern-day slavery disguised as labor export, one of North Korea's largest sources of foreign income. Amid the economic calculations and statistics, the human cost cannot be ignored. Young men and women sent thousands of miles from family, their sweat and skill transforming into cash they will never touch. Their lives are a stark reminder of the invisible machinery that sustains a nation. Under sanctions, these overseas labor programs reveal a ruthless efficiency, a system where people are revenue streams. Yet, as the regime seeks ever more creative ways to earn, darker and riskier operations take shape, leading directly into the shadowy world of smuggling and illicit trade. The glow of computer screens illuminates darkened rooms, fingers flying over keyboards with precision and purpose. North Korea has mastered a silent, invisible battlefield. The digital world, cybercrime and hacking operations have become one of the regime's most dangerous and lucrative sources of income. State-backed groups, like the notorious Lazarus Group, target banks, cryptocurrency exchanges, and global financial systems, siphoning billions with alarming efficiency. According to a 2023 United Nations Security Council report, North Korean cyber operations have netted over $2 billion in stolen cryptocurrency alone, a staggering sum for a country under crippling sanctions. These attacks are low-cost, high-reward, and nearly untraceable, allowing the regime to bypass international barriers that restrict traditional trade. Yet, behind the cold numbers lie young hackers, often recruited in secret, trained rigorously, and pressured into acts that put them on the front lines of global crime. Their lives are confined to dim rooms, their skills transformed into tools for a government they cannot question. Human cost invisible to the outside world. Cyber operations reveal a terrifying efficiency. Money made without borders, without factories, without risk of direct confrontation. But as these digital incursions grow bolder, the question remains: how far will the regime go to exploit the unseen networks of the global financial system? The shadow economy deepens, leading into the murky world of counterfeit goods and illicit manufacturing. The metallic scent of gunpowder lingers over dimly lit factories, where missiles and artillery shells are assembled with precision and secrecy. North Korea turns the machinery of war into one of its most profitable enterprises. Beyond borders and sanctions, weapons and missile technology are sold to sanctioned states. Armed militias, and conflict zones, transactions conducted in cash, oil, or even food. The scale is chilling. According to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute (SIPRI), North Korea's illicit arms exports have generated hundreds of millions of dollars annually, funding programs that keep the regime insulated from international pressure. Each rocket sold is more than a transaction. It is a lifeline for a government that thrives in the shadows, while the world scrambles to contain the fallout. Amid the clandestine operations, the human cost is stark. Workers in these facilities endure grueling conditions, fully aware that their labor produces instruments of destruction destined for distant wars and suffering. It is a system that converts ordinary lives into the currency of conflict, where ethics are secondary to survival. Despite global sanctions, the black market for weapons is booming, demonstrating the regime's ruthless adaptability. But while missiles travel across borders, another branch of North Korea's economy, falsified currency and illicit goods, awaits, equally audacious and dangerously lucrative. The fog rolls over the Yalu River as small boats slip silently along the border, carrying precious cargo under the cover of night. In North Korea, bending the rules isn't just tolerated, it is the business model. Smuggling networks move oil, minerals, and goods using ship-to-ship transfers in international waters, false flags, and fabricated company identities, weaving a web that confounds inspectors and satellites alike. According to a 2022 UN panel of experts report, North Korea evaded sanctions on over 90% of its oil imports using covert transfers and falsified documentation. Even as global authorities tighten surveillance, the regime adapts, exploiting loopholes and global blind spots with relentless ingenuity. Behind the schemes are ordinary people, drivers, and smugglers whose livelihoods are tied to a system that thrives on secrecy. Many risk arrests, injury, or worse, knowing that their labor keeps a sanctioned economy alive. It is a dangerous game of survival, where human lives are as expendable as the cargo they transport. North Korea's smuggling operations reveal a daring resilience, an economy that refuses to be contained, constantly evading the eyes of the world. But as oil flows, ships sail, and borders blur, the state also turns to subtler, yet equally profitable methods, crafting counterfeit goods that will enter markets worldwide. The scent of ink and chemicals hangs in dimly lit workshops, where presses churn out bills that are nearly indistinguishable from the real thing. North Korea's counterfeiting operations are a masterclass in audacity. High-quality fake U.S. currency flow into global markets, alongside counterfeit cigarettes, alcohol, and even medicines. It is an economy built on deception, where imitation yields real profit. According to a 2021 U.S. Treasury report, North Korea has produced hundreds of millions in counterfeit currency. With operations coordinated through overseas criminal networks, these illicit trades bypass sanctions and generate hard currency that fuels the regime's most critical programs. Partnerships with organized crime groups abroad expand the reach of these operations, allowing North Korea to infiltrate markets across Asia, Africa, and beyond. Behind the sophistication, there are technicians and laborers, often coerced or under strict surveillance, whose expertise is exploited for profit they will never see. Their lives are entwined with the machinery of fraud, a human toll invisible to the consumers of these counterfeit goods. Despite being an old method, counterfeiting remains remarkably effective, a testament to the regime's persistence and adaptability. Yet, as money is forged in secret, the state simultaneously turns to even more audacious and high-stakes ventures like cybercrime, pushing the boundaries of legality and risk on the global stage. Steam rises from crowded market stalls in Pyongyang, mingling with the murmurs of citizens navigating a system designed to extract every possible resource. North Korea's regime does not rely solely on foreign income inside the country. It squeezes revenue from its own people. Heavy taxes on state-controlled markets, mandatory contributions, and unofficial bribes serve as hidden streams of income that flow straight into the coffers of the ruling elite. The military-first Songan policy amplifies this extraction, prioritizing funding for armed forces over public welfare. The World Bank estimates that domestic resource mobilization through taxes and mandatory labor programs constitutes a significant portion of the state's budget, while ordinary citizens endure shortages, inflation, and limited access to basic goods. Amid this economic pressure, the human story is stark. Families scrape together necessities, paying both official levies and clandestine fees, navigating a system that rewards compliance and punishes dissent. Every transaction, every bribe, is a reminder of the invisible weight carried by ordinary people, an economy that survives on their hardship. Domestic exploitation underscores a brutal truth. The state ensures survival at the cost of its citizens' well-being. But while the regime mines its population for revenue, its most audacious and globally impactful schemes, cyber smuggling and weapons sales, continue beyond its borders, expanding North Korea's reach and danger in the international arena. The wind whips across barren fields as children wait in line for rations, the quiet desperation palpable. North Korea has learned to turn crisis into currency, wielding scarcity as leverage on the global stage. Food aid, once intended for humanitarian relief, becomes a bargaining chip. Threats and brinkmanship extract concessions, while negotiations secure inflows of much-needed resources. The World Food Programme reports that in some years, over 1 million North Koreans relied on international food assistance. Yet, a significant portion of aid is diverted to elites, military units, and state projects, leaving the most vulnerable to endure malnutrition and hardship. The regime weaponizes poverty itself, transforming human suffering into diplomatic advantage. Behind the statistics lie lives suspended between hope and survival. Families dependent on aid confront a system that manipulates their vulnerability, where scarcity is orchestrated and relief is conditional. Each meal distributed carries the weight of politics, a human cost invisible beyond the borders. Foreign aid illustrates the regime's mastery of leverage. Every crisis is a negotiation, every shortage a potential gain. As North Korea extracts value from both citizens and the international community, the question remains: how far will the state go to exploit every available channel, from markets to cyberspace, in pursuit of survival and revenue? The global cat-and-mouse game continues,